Why? Why are young guitar players getting so good so quickly? I'll tell you why. This video is sponsored by Skillshare. Why are young guitar players so good? It's no secret that these days there are more quote-unquote good guitar players than any other point in human history. Obviously there are factors involved such as, the advancements of technology, access to the internet, and a lower level of entry to actually get a guitar. Guitars are much cheaper than they were 30, 20, or even 10 years ago. However, when you take a little bit of a deeper dive and you look at how good these players actually are, it's very startling to see how good they get and how quickly they get good. So in this video, I'm posing the question as to why. Why are guitar players the best that they've ever been by a mile? I think I've figured out a good reason and not a lot of people are talking about it. Good guitar playing can be a very subjective term. For example, I could sit my mum down, who's someone who's been watching me play and grow up with a guitar for the past 18 years since the age of 5. I could sit her down, make her watch a Tim Henson playthrough of something I would never be able to play in my life, and she'd come back to me and say, yeah, that was good guitar playing. I could also play a really simple solo for her and she would say the exact same thing, that it's good guitar playing. However, for your case, and definitely for mine, my standard of good guitar playing is no matter the technicality of it, it could be that exact same simple solo. It's all about how that solo is played. Things like the guitar player's vibrato, how in time they are they muting their strings, how are they making contact with each fret within the phrase. All these things, all the technicalities of guitar playing, because I'm a guitar player, that is my subjective element into good guitar playing. And again, I assume that all of that criteria, among many other things, are the same things that you look for when you're watching someone as another guitar player, whether you realize it or not. It's the same reason why this is the exact same thing as this. Yet you thought that second clip was better guitar playing. So when I open up YouTube and I see a bunch of recommendations for kids basically across the internet who I've never seen before in my life, absolutely nailing these Polyphia songs in one take, and again, it begs the question, how? Playing at this level is something that's rarely ever taught in your average private guitar lesson. I know that when I had my guitar lessons between the ages of 5 and 10, I went through the rite of passage. I learnt all the notes across the first 3 frets of the guitar. I learned my basic chord shapes, and then I went on to tabs and basically forgot everything. So that was my rite of passage, and that is basically the standard model, I guess, for most traditional guitar lessons. I was never explicitly taught how to play tight, clean, or watch my muting or anything like that. But now as I've grown up and I've started this YouTube channel and I'm putting videos out there, I actually view that as one of the strongest points in my playing. And this has been validated time and time again from the kind comments that you guys leave on my videos. The average guitar teacher won't be sitting there teaching you the nuances of string muting and double-handed tapping or anything crazy like that. So if I was never actually learning any of this from a young age, why is it that me, along with so many other young guitarists, just kind of developed this habit naturally? Everything you see behind me is pretty standard for like your 2023 bedroom musician setup. I've got a computer, some monitors, an audio interface, and that's pretty much all you need to make really professional grade quality mixes and songs from the comfort of your bedroom. This has been proven time and time again, especially in the modern metal scene over the past 10 years, where we've seen a massive surgence of self-produced artists and bands. So you might ask, what does that have to do with guitar players getting better and better? Well, as time goes on, there are new artists with every up-and-coming generation that are becoming the best, most influential guitarists in that era, and they stand the test of time. Some of these people have been cemented in music history itself as one of the most proficient guitar players that the world has ever seen. Very early on, there were guys like Jimi Hendrix, B.B. King, Chuck Berry. The next wave of rock music included guys like Jimmy Page, Eric Clapton, and even David Gilmour. Going into the 80s and the shredder era, you had guys like the late, great Eddie Van Halen, Joe Satriani, and Steve Vai. Are you starting to see a pattern here? The 90s saw John Petrucci, Dimebag Darrell. The 2000s saw John Mayer, Guthrie Govan. And then when 2010 hit, everything exploded. Tosin Abasi, Misha Mansour, Tim Henson, Scott LePage, Nita Strauss, John Petrucci, again, Matthias Sassardo, Jason Richardson. There are so many unbelievable guitar players that have come up in the past 10, 15 years. Is actually mind-boggling. This doesn't even include the YouTube guys that you might get on your recommended that are in some ways more technically proficient than the majority of the people that I just mentioned in this video. So again, why? Why are young guitar players getting so good so quickly? I'll tell you why. it's overproduction. As time has gone on, there has been more and more developments in how music is played, recorded, and produced. This obviously includes how the emergence of multi-track recording and home setups have completely obliterated the standard practice of going into a studio and recording a body of music that way. And it's for this reason that I think guitar players, especially young guitar players, have gotten so good so quickly, so fast. So let me give you an example. Think about someone like James Hetfield from Metallica. People view him now as one of the most influential rhythm guitar players that the world has ever seen, and he is viewed as having one of the best picking hands on the planet. When you start to think about his influences and inspirations back when he was listening to whatever he was listening to in, say, like the 70s or early 80s, and he just started to write music himself, there was only so much context and technology surrounding him and the world of music that embodied it. His reference for good guitar playing would have been the records that he grew up listening on, which obviously has nowhere near the quality, fidelity, and production that records have today. When you go back and listen to those old Metallica takes of the isolated guitar, there is no doubt that when you're listening to that, you can make an assumption that James Hetfield is an absolute beast of a player. However, when you take that same isolated guitar track from whatever song it is, and you compare it to the standards that bands are recording at today, it doesn't even come close. Music in general, especially guitar-driven music, has become so overly processed and perfected over the years. Takes are often cut up, dragged to the grid, comped even for single notes that don't hit right. Basically, because of home recording and because of the flexibility that that allows, you have infinite possibilities to make that perfect guitar take sound absolutely perfect. You can literally sit there for hours on end recording the same thing and bin everything else. You don't have to sit there and record it in one take. You can literally punch in chord by chord, note by note to make sure that it sounds absolutely pristine. I'll use someone like Misha Mansour of Periphery, who is the prime example of how guitar players have gotten better due to overproduction. So when Misha Mansour was rising up on things like 7string.org and SoundClick, which are probably inactive at this point, back in 2006 when he was known as Bulb, he was utilizing the up-and-coming techniques of home recording, as it was around that time that, home recording actually became a reality, and people started using their gaming computers that were powerful enough to run these DAWs and run these programs so that they could record at home. His point of good guitar playing and his reference would have been guys like John Petrucci, Sugar, and even guys like Alan Holdsworth. Let's not get it twisted. All those guys that I just mentioned are absolute powerhouses at their instrument. But with the ability to record, cut up, drag, snap to the grid, comp in with separate takes, Misha Mansour's sound and demos would have taken on that characteristic of perfectionism naturally. So now when guys like me, or him, grow up playing guitar in that light, grow up listening to Periphery records, watching Tim Henson play, watching Tosin Abasi do some selective picking or whatever he's trying to be a god at these days, it's no wonder why young guitar players are generally just cleaner at playing guitar. Before I even knew what home recording was, I was stuck in my room as a 15, 16-year-old playing on an import Ibanez, going through a Line 6 Spider amp, listening to Periphery 3. That level of recording, that level of production, that level of all the perfect takes that it took to make a record like that. As I fell in love with guitar more and more, and as I listened to those songs more and more, and I wanted to learn all those songs, I was trying to sound like that record. Whether I realized it or not, I was learning how to mute my strings properly, I was learning how to make perfect contact with each fret, and I was adjusting my picking technique to get the cleanest, most overproduced sound that I possibly could out of a guitar that was naturally raw and unprocessed. The scariest part is that the generation below me, who are like 16, 17, 18, even 19, in a social media crazy world that we live in, who are now growing up with an even stronger social media presence filled with guys like Tim Henson, Manuel Garda Fernandez, Mateus Asado, who are absolute gods at their instrument. All of which, mind you, are only slightly older than me. I think they'd be like at most 4 or 5 years older than me, and they all would have done the same thing that I did. They would have gone through all the same revelations that I did when they were learning their instrument and learning the songs that they grew up with, which are probably very similar to mine, and they wanted to sound like those records that they loved so much. This video is sponsored by Skillshare. Even though this is a music channel, the reality is that I need to be well versed in a wide array of creative skill sets such as video editing, audio mixing, camera placement, so on and so forth. Given that it's a new year and I'm deciding to take up music full time as a job, I figured that it's time I touched up on my video editing skills in Premiere Pro and After Effects. Right now, I'm learning the advanced video editing, essential graphics and more in Adobe Premiere class by Heliz Nevaez. I've already picked up on a few things that I've implemented in this video that I'll continue to implement in future videos where I'm using Adobe Premiere Pro as my editing program of choice. The first 1,000 people to join Skillshare from this video will receive a free 3-month trial. There'll be a link for this up on the screen, and you can also find it down in the description below. So what do you think? Are guitar players the best that they've ever been, and is the youngest generation growing up to be the best generation of guitar players that there has ever been on planet Earth? Definitely let me know in the comments below. If you guys like this video at any time, please consider giving it a like and a share to a friend if you think they'd find it interesting as well. If you guys want to see more content like this on the channel, definitely let me know in a comment below, and subscribe to make sure you don't miss it. If you guys want to support me directly, you can check out things like my Patreon, tabs, stems, affiliate links, all of that stuff and more will be down below in the description of this video. Massive thank you again to Skillshare for sponsoring this video. Massive thank you to all my Patreons who allow me to make content like this. I really do appreciate it. And massive thank you to every single one of you if you're still watching this video. I know it's been a long one, but it's something that I thought I should talk about because I think it is a very interesting point to bring up. Until next time, I'll catch you guys later. Thank you so much for watching. Ciao.